Good morning to you. Mark South with HurricaneTrack here. Monday now, the 5th of May, 2025. On the update today, we're going to talk about the possible first signs of development, maybe for the southeastern Pacific, maybe the southwest Caribbean. I'll explain all of that, what we're going to be looking for, and what you can look for as well. Then we're going to talk severe weather. I'm actually clearly not in my office hotel room again. I'm over in Fort Worth, Texas, getting ready to head west to study hail later today. I'll talk about that at the end of today's update. And make sure you stick around because I've got a nice treat for you. That last tab over there that says Guthrie, Texas, you're going to want to see that. It's pretty neat stuff I got for you. So let's get started. First of all, I always like to peruse the different parameters that shape the hurricane season coming up. And a big part of that, as you probably know, are sea surface temperatures and the departures from the long-term averages. Most of the deep tropics now, fairly warm compared to the long-term average. Now, to be clear, way less warm than we've seen the last couple of years, especially out this way. But one thing that's interesting, the subtropics up here have cooled, and the deep tropics are warmer than the subtropics. So you would typically think that this would focus the energy more down where we expect it and not distort things if this was much warmer like we saw really the last several months. That's changed. Now it looks like, at least for now, this is May 3rd's map. This gets updated every day, and I'm doing this pretty early in the morning, so anyway. It is warmer down in the deep tropics than the subtropics for the most part, and that is an interesting look that should focus the energy where we expect it to be. The Caribbean, the Gulf, also quite a bit warmer than the long-term average. And you notice that the tropical Pacific, not La Nina, not El Nino, kind of in the middle. But the most important aspect of this, I do believe, is the lack of El Nino. Not having an El Nino, and I've talked about this recently, maybe even more than once recently. No El Nino plus the warmer Atlantic relative to average usually does give us an active hurricane season versus one that has less activity. And that's very important because the more hurricanes you have, certainly the more opportunities there are for that keyword impacts. And of course, none of this tells us about what impacts might be coming. This just tells us that the base state is generally favorable for an active season. If we zoom in, yes, the Caribbean, quite a bit warmer than the long-term average, at least 1 degree Celsius or warmer. Well, that's what at least means. And then the Gulf, of course, always running warm, it seems, these last many years. But I want to make one thing also abundantly clear, especially if you're new to my videos in recent days or weeks, or maybe this is your first one, the first time you're seeing one. The Gulf really has no bearing on the rest of the hurricane season. There's no correlation to having a warm Gulf. Oh, we're going to have a busy season. It's really when the hurricanes or tropical storms especially get into the Gulf, then they start to strengthen quickly with that very warm water. So no correlation to having a very warm Gulf versus, what the rest of the hurricane season is going to be like. It's mainly the tropical Atlantic, the Caribbean, and then what kind of wind shear we might have. The Gulf seems to be sort of its own little area. Just want to throw that out there. All right, related to all of this is this post from our friend Andy Hazelton. Generally what he's saying here is we have to start watching over the next couple of weeks because a little pulse of energy that we call a Kelvin Wave, and you can see that traversing from west to east here. That's the Hofmuller diagram, so this correlates to about right here, and then the time frame is now. And then as you move forward, this correlates to here, the tropical Atlantic, and parts of the eastern Pacific, and then that correlates to the middle part of May. That's how you interpret one of these. And all of that green is upward motion, favorable environments in the upper part of the atmosphere, maybe more moisture, certainly less shear. And we can see that less shear being reflected on these upper air maps. The blues are your reduction in wind shear. This is the GEFS, and this is the EPS, which is the ensemble from the Euro. And that's important because we're starting to see some agreement here that a favorable pattern could set up in this part of the world right down here over the next couple of weeks. Now, one thing that could happen, and I'm going to show you this on the GFS, it really likes to spin things up with like making a mountain out of a molehill. Let's just move this out through time. This is the Western Atlantic Basin. Now we're out at about day 10, right there. That's 240 hours. And you notice off the coast of South America, you've got this stream of vorticity that cuts across, coming off these mountains down here. The trades are coming through the Caribbean. And the air starts to pile up down here, or what we call converge. And sometimes it's often, the GFS likes to just bundle that energy up, and boom, you get a tropical cyclone that develops, and everybody starts to get upset. Understandably. But you have to note, this is 276 hours out, and the GFS likes to do this. It's just one of its flaws. The problem is, at hour 276, we don't know if this is going to be real or not. Most of the times it's not, and we know that, and that's why I don't post some picture of that as my thumbnail, trying to scare the heck out of everybody. Instead, I want to talk about it with you so that you understand that the situation might lend itself to having something like that happen, but also what the biases are in the models and why we don't have to be too concerned with it just yet. Generally, for what we call tropical cyclogenesis, very fancy way of when do we look for development, 5 days or less is pretty reliable. 276 hours, not even close. But it is almost time to start watching this area, mid-May and beyond, so we might as well talk about it. All right? I did so let's move on. And as you can see on the satellite animation this morning, very early morning for me over here in the Fort Worth area, Central Time, sun hasn't even come up yet, but no clouds down here to speak of, just good trade winds blowing through, no deep convection, no thunderstorms, no seedlings, but we will certainly watch because we know, as I showed you from the post from Andy Hazelton, in about 2 weeks, we might have to start paying closer attention. What I need you to pay attention to, let's switch to severe weather and those impacts. Pretty large area of flash flood watches here for a good part of the nation's midsection, owed to the fact that it's been pretty wet in this region, and we got an upper level low big storm system here in New Mexico, warm Gulf moisture streaming in, and the storms that evolve and take shape are going to dump a lot of rain over the coming days. Storm Prediction Center really highlights that. Let's go back to, I jumped ahead a little bit, day 1 here. Wait a minute, there's day 1. An enhanced risk, and that's part of the overall pattern. Big upper level low sitting out here, and the warm Gulf moisture coming in, and these slow moving systems kind of stuck in this pattern could dump a lot of rain over the coming days. I'll show you that on one of the models coming up. But that's why I'm out here. The other part of this is my work studying hail. About a year and a half ago, I had this brilliant idea. Aside from hurricanes, I had this just weird fascination with especially large and destructive hail. There's just not a lot out there. Plenty of video, plenty of research on tornadoes. Rightfully so. They are deadly. We don't want that to happen. We don't want people to die in severe weather at all. But hail is far more damaging economically. Billions and billions of dollars a year. Some years, many tens of billions of dollars. Mostly in the nation's midsection, sometimes elsewhere in rare occurrences, but we all pay for it with our insurance premiums. And I just thought, let me lend my perspective on this interesting phenomenon. So we're going to use remotely operated cameras, mostly GoPros, put those on the roof of our Tacoma with a special hail guard that we've got built, and capture the impacts literally using slow-mo, using 360, using just close-up and roof panels, you name it, we're going to try to do it. And then the key is measure, 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 and then hand all that data off to anybody that wants to see it, because we're crowdfunded and it's all paid for on the front end. So that's the beauty of all this. So that's why I'm out here. So today's risk for hail, the highest in western Texas, and that is where I will be later today. Tomorrow, all of that shifts south and east into areas near and around the hill country. The hail threat is fairly significant down there near Austin. And boy, they've had some big ones over the years. and we'll have to see if tomorrow is another one of those days. We'll wait and see when we get there. The the high-resolution rapid refresh model, really painting the scene here today. Big storms developing in the Panhandle and vicinity. Then as the sun goes down, yikes, look at all of that activity. Let's scroll this up a little bit. Heavy, heavy rain across the Red River Valley, southeastern New Mexico. And then all that moisture, you can see it streaming in right out of the Gulf here. That'll fuel tomorrow's action, which will spread east and south of where we're expecting it today. But look at all that rain. And now you can understand why we have all those flood watches in effect for the area. So please be careful out there if you're traveling through, especially the storm chasers. Don't get stuck. You get out there late at night, you get stuck in that mud, you could be in trouble. My target area today will be roughly between Amarillo and Lubbock. I'm thinking closer to Lubbock. And we'll just watch the radar, we'll watch the high-resolution models, and of course the mesoscale discussions from SPC. And I'll make my way out of the Fort Worth area, down I-20 over here, and probably jump off near Sweetwater and make my way up to this region by later today. And that'll be live on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, here's that little treat for you. Now look, this is really, really neat. In our hurricane work, we've done some groundbreaking things with live cameras and of course our GoPro cameras capturing some of the most amazing impacts, certainly deadly and economically impactful effects of hurricanes. But I wanted to turn that sort of passion and innovation to another phenomenon. Again, plenty of video and people going after tornadoes. That's well covered. Not as many people truly studying hail. So one of the things I wanted to do was get a 360 cam out there and see the hail like we've never seen it before. And this is an example from last week when I was out here with our good friend CJ. This is the hailstorm near Guthrie, Texas. In gorgeous 360, if you look up, you can actually see the hailstones falling out of the sky. And I'll tell you what, you got a VR and you want to look at it in the VR. I'm going to make this public later today so that you can do just that. It'll pop up right on our YouTube. And look at that. That is just like, carpet bombing hail. And those concentrations of that much hail is what does a lot of damage to roofs and cars, of course. This guy, he's got a nice big truck, but it is really, really not a well understood and studied phenomenon of severe weather. And now more and more attention is finally being paid to it. And I'm glad to be a part of that effort. By the way, there's the Tacoma and the Hail Guard. We took these panels off. Don't even ask. Just ignore this shenanigans right here. I was trying something and it didn't work. But that's the Hail Guard, and we have not had any impacts that busted our glass or anything. So why is my telestrator not working? Anyway, let me get me back on. That's what we do. And I'll be out here solo today for the most part. Might meet up with my friend Dr. Hal Needham, who's also out here studying the hail phenomenon. But anyhow, it's a really interesting part of severe weather, and we'll see what we get. But yes, later today, live on YouTube starting about 3 p.m. Eastern Time as I drive west across Texas and hopefully get into less rain, what we call a lower precipitation supercell setup. We'll have to see about that. And maybe some of the bigger hail out in an open area where it's not affecting anybody. But even out in the open areas, it affects livestock. They may have thick hides, but the cows don't like it either. Trust me. I've seen it. All right. That is it for me, from me, whatever, for today. Again, live on YouTube and Facebook. Our friend CJ, who handles a lot of the back end stuff, even when he's sitting right next to me, he's able to do it all on his laptop remotely back into our offices and make the magic of live video happen. That happens again today, starting around 3 p.m. Eastern until well after dark tonight. Hopefully you'll tune in. But to do so, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us over on the Facebook, and check us out when we do go live and post other videos like this. All right? All right, well, let me get this online for you and wish you guys a great Monday. Thank you for tuning in, giving me a part of your day. I'm Mark Suttle from all of us at HurricaneTrack. I'll see you later today live as I travel across Texas.